And we're back again with our NAB 2024 coverage. I'm here with Chris Merrill from Panasonic, product management, head of product management, right? At the Panasonic Connect is the piece of the massive thing that is Panasonic.
It is a large company.
And we're going to talk about just the overall strategy Panasonic has in terms of capture, create, and deliver, right? And the components that go into that. So first of all, let's just dive in. What's the whole thinking behind kind of building a cohesive workflow and strategy across those three sections?
Sure. Everything we're really trying to do is to simplify a workflow for a creative person, right? And the challenge is, as you look at all of the various pieces that have to go into the workflow, often it's hard to get them to work together, to talk together, and so we're really trying to bring together a solution that all the way from the camera that captures it through the switching platform till you're starting to push that out to whatever delivery that you want, that's all guaranteed to work together. And so that's consistently the theme that we're working on as we go through this, as you say, capture, create, deliver kind of strategy.
Great. And so let's start with the capture side of things.
Yeah.
What's kind of new? What announcements do you have at the show? What's been going on in that area?
In that area, well, we're a couple of different things. We have both PTZ cameras and studio cameras. Obviously, well known for our PTZs, and what we're actually introducing is a lower end PTZ, the UE30. We're trying to allow, what we see is so many people are trying to use video for communication, regardless of who it is, right? Pick your vertical market, somebody's trying to use that video as a means of communication. We're doing it right here. And so how do you do that in a way that's accessible to many people? And so the UE30 is coming in at a price point that's making that much more affordable for many individuals, but still maintaining that high quality of image that Panasonic's known for.
Well, it's interesting. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Did I cut you off?
No.
Obviously, the whole live switching kind of environment has become a lot more ubiquitous than it used to be. It used to be just the realm of broadcasters, and things like the Blackmagic 810 Mini have kind of made this environment something that a lot more people are looking at, whether it's houses of worship or just corporate communications, those kinds of events. And so when you think about switching, in some senses, that part of it, creating the content, it's a button that says cut or switch, right?
Yeah.
But there's still innovation to be done there. So what kind of innovation are we seeing there in the actual create side of things?
Yeah, we have introduced a couple of different options there for you. The first one is what we call Kairos, which is a live production platform. So it does have that switching component in it, as well as graphics and audio and other kinds of creative tools are available to that user. It is a software-based platform, right?
Okay.
So that's an important aspect, because many of the traditional switching platforms that you see today are really, I'm using FPGAs. That means I've got a fixed ME. I can only do so many things in a particular ME, and then I've got to feed that into another. Kairos does away with all of that, and what we're finding is folks who are using like traditional digital media programs, like any of the Adobe suite or those kinds of things, are finding that user interface really familiar.
Right.
Because the internal processing, I'm just adding layers, right? I don't have to worry about how many MEs I've got or whether this is a key or not. I'm just adding layers and layers of video on top of each other, but then being able to access it with sort of a traditional keyboard that people are used to from a switching side of things, but the internal aspect of it is so much easier. What we've introduced here at this show is a new model, the KC200L1, which actually is, although Kairos is native 2110 IP inside, we've given that particular model an SDI I/O. So for those folks who aren't ready to go into an IP network right now, they're able to then just plug their SDI inputs into that, but then have all the flexibility of that software-defined creativity inside. And at some future point where they want to bridge to the IP, then you introduce a network interface card. You just add that to your system, and now I'm talking to my IP system as well.
It's probably a good time to switch and talk a little bit about 2110. So it's interesting because at this point it's all data, right? And we did have this kind of crossover from analog BNC to SDI, and really at the same time the rest of the world has been doing data via IP. Obviously, we have much more stringent requirements in terms of latency and packet loss and all those kinds of things, but we're moving to IP, like that's where it's going, right? So what does that look like if someone's looking to transition? Is it like, do you have to kind of give up your SDI and go straight to IP-based system and just kind of pull everything out, pull all the wires and cables out? Or is there some kind of hybrid approach to transitioning?
Yeah, we're absolutely looking at a hybrid approach. I mean, we recognize that people have an investment, in kit that's there, and there's no reason to tear all of that out. Now, if you were going greenfield today, I would absolutely say, yeah, go IP. But for many people, that's not their scenario. So how do I gracefully move from one kind of network environment to another? So things like I mentioned, that ability to change a card and add a network interface. Our studio cameras, one of the things we're doing right now is the camera control that comes out of them gives you either that option to do either SDI or IP straight out from the camera. And some of the cameras actually now you can skip the CCU altogether and just go directly from the camera IP.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it gives you that opportunity to, you move at your own pace. Because for many people, it's an unfamiliar environment. It's not easy to make that transition, but we're trying to keep that simple for them.
And just on a very practical level, the actual cabling and everything, I imagine you need a little bit more shielding, a little bit more sort of toughness.
Most people are actually using fiber when you get to IP, right? Because it's easier to manage than trying.
Lighter weight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And one of the primary reasons for many people going IP is they're actually trying to do some sort of remote production scenario, and therefore you want to use a fiber run for that in order to get a nice clean signal for wherever you're going. So that allows you to then sort of divorce where the processing is happening from where the creativity is happening, and allow that to operate in two separate locations.
Right. And then let's take to that back end there and talk about deliver. Obviously, a gazillion different platforms to deliver to these days.
You could.
And how does Panasonic approach that?
Well, what we're trying to do is although many of our things are native IP, realize that not everybody's working in that sort of environment, right? So, do I need NDI outs? Okay, we got those. Are you working in SRT? We can do that for you. Do I need some of these compressed formats or a streaming format? Whatever we're doing there, the nice thing about in an IP environment is actually those are more software kinds of changes, right, rather than having to redo the entire inside. And so many of our pieces of equipment that we're adding to those networks have, you choose the sorts of outputs that you want.
And so again, software based to a heavy degree, so a lot of customization, a lot of the ability for the end user to tailor the gear to their application.
Exactly. And also the nice thing about that is the ability to scale, right? So many people today, if you do a traditional broadcast kind of scenario, you're buying the biggest system I can afford because you know that you'll just use it. Most of the time you don't use it, but you know for those few occasions that you will have to have when you buy the biggest system you can afford. One of the nice things about being more software defined and being able to work in that IP environment is now I can scale when I need to. I may even be able, because it's licensed, I may be able to pull that back, right? So I'm actually working in an environment where I've got the system I use generally, and I scale as needed. And so it's a much more effective system that way, cost-effective system that way.
So if someone is going to make that transition to IP, are you like a full solutions provider in terms of switches and that whole thing?
Absolutely.
And so you kind of have a certified systems that you work with, certified switches and that kind of thing, or is it Panasonic gear that does that middle ground
stuff? You mean from the networking standpoint?
Yeah, just curious.
We have a lot of alliance partners that we work with,
okay,
right, where you know that you can get a system that we verified it's going to work. But most of the big names in IP equipment we work with.
Yeah, which makes sense. Obviously, you
So-
don't want to reinvent something that's
No,
been made
you
bulletproof.
have to create an
Yeah.
environment that's open to all of the providers, because clearly we can't make everything. So you might as well have the experts be able to do that.
Great. Well, thanks so much for chatting. If you obviously have a big presence on the floor, people
We're
can come
enjoying that.
check that out, and then we'll put a link next to this video description in terms of specifically looking at this whole kind of ecosystem
That would
we've
be
been talking
great.
about.
Yeah, loving that ability right from the beginning in the glass with it, whether it's cameras or PTZ, all the way through the crate, audio, all of those pieces are that environment, and you can see them there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.